Bree, I am so excited to have you here. Okay, first of all, for those who don't know Bree, let me geek out for a second. So I went to the MakerBot store here in New York recently, and can we get his mic on, please? On Mulberry Street, and I had my head scanned because you can actually 3D print yourself these days. I think that's like the ultimate selfie. I can't wait to get meta with that, to take a selfie of my selfie. So, all right, so on that note, look, we're talking about a lot of new economies that are emerging here. Okay, so you have the social economy, right? You now have the sharing or the collaborative economy. And now I want to talk about the maker economy. So why don't you get us up to speed? What is the maker economy?
So at Maker, let's start from the beginning. At MakerBot, we make 3D printers, and we empower people to make things. And in many ways, we allow people to manifest pretty much anything. When you have a MakerBot, you have a superpower. You can manifest things, pretty much anything. And we also just came out with so we have the MakerBot Replicator 2, which is our 3D printer, and then we've got the MakerBot Digitizer desktop 3D scanner, which does the opposite. The Replicator takes a digital design and turns it into a physical object. The Digitizer takes a physical object, turns it into a digital design. So what we're all about is empowering people to make things so that when you want something, you're just going to be able to download it and have it, rather than go to a store and buy it.
So, look, there's a lot of talk about 3D printing. I don't know that the world necessarily understands its true impact on society beyond, say, like trinkets. When I was there, I got to see everything from bracelets being made on the spot to really anything that your design, that you'd upload. But what's the bigger impact of the maker economy? I mean, what are we really witnessing?
So what we're seeing ordinary people empowered to become manufacturers. So, for example, we've got a project that these two guys are working on, and now it's a much bigger project called the RoboHand project. They're two guys. One lives in Seattle, one lives in South Africa. One of them lost their fingers in a trade accident and decided to remake his hand. And once he made a prototype of a prosthetic for his hand, a friend of his had a kid who had amniotic band syndrome, where he was born without fingers. And they're like, can you do one of those for me? And they have MakerBots, so it's not a big deal. It costs about $5. They made one for the kid, and then they shared the design. So now, normally you don't get prosthetics for kids because they cost like 10 grand, and they grow out of them like sneakers. But when they cost like $5 in materials, which is what it costs if you have a MakerBot, they can just run them off, and if they grow out of them, no big deal. We had and it's been downloaded like 40,000 times by folks. So like the ability for two people who are not engineers to start a project, to make a difference, to make things, and then share them and have an impact on the world is pretty deep.
I got to imagine that there are people in this economy that are a little freaked out at the fact that you can sort of democratize designs and then sort of empower the consumer to be a manufacturer. I mean, what are some of the hurdles that you had to beat or that you're still facing today where you are?
I think we've had an interesting adventure. We started off and our main customers were hobbyists. Then makers. And now we have the whole gamut from teachers and parents use them. As Lockheed Martin and NASA are both using them to explore space. So it runs, because we have a machine that's professional enough for engineers but affordable for everybody else. It really brings and because it's like a manufacturing education in a box, it brings it to people in a way where, we're kind of at the early days of this. If you're into this, you can be a pioneer. You can be one of those people at the beginning.
Right. Well, one of the things that I find interesting, of course you're a pioneer, but you're also building these things in New York.
Yeah.
Right? So for a consumer electronics company, that's kind of a big deal, right? And I got to imagine 3D printers are a complicated device. So tell us a little bit about your strategy bringing it here.
So we looked into manufacturing abroad, and it just didn't make sense for us. The wages have doubled or tripled in Asia in terms of manufacturing labor, and it's often not done with pride, so it requires a lot of quality control. By making them in Brooklyn, we allow our design engineers to interface with our manufacturing engineers, and they get together all the time, And the manufacturing engineers are like, you are not putting any screws on the bottom of this thing. I'm not turning this over on the line. I don't want to have to flip the thing over on the line. And you get that back and forth, so you can actually build better products, and you can have better lines of communication, build it faster. And we have a secret ingredient in the MakerBot, and that it's built with Brooklyn pride. The people who make it care about it, and you don't necessarily get that in all parts of the world.
No, I love that because it's part of the experience. So look, one of the things I find fascinating is the quick evolution from hobbyist to, say, prosumer around 3D printing. But I think we're just getting started, and I got to imagine that you have a greater vision for where this is going to go. I mean, I'm sure we've all seen on the news that 3D printing was allowing people to build guns at home. But it's got a bigger opportunity. You used health as an example. I mean, what are some of the bigger promises for 3D printing?
I think it might be interesting for this room to think about how brands are using 3D printing. Yep. So, we've done partnerships with Nokia, Skype, and just a ton of other brands. The car companies. People are using. We sell MakerBots to Yelp because they make custom things for their. For meetups and promotional items, and like the Nokia page on Thingiverse. Thingiverse is our website where people share digital designs, and it's an amazing community. We're starting to see brands emerge on there in the same way that, in Twitter, I was early to Twitter. I was at South by Southwest that year. I'm early Twitter user. My Twitter handle's BRE, but. And now if I wanted to get a Twitter handle, it'd be like BRE000172, right? Or something like this,
Getting
right?
all AOL on it.
We're seeing all the brands start to eat up the namespace, start to sort of squat on their names, because on Thingiverse, it's emerging as one of those places where if you're not there, you might not be relevant. So, in the back room, I was talking to the folks who are developing Kool-Aid, and I was like, I don't think the Kool-Aid Man is on Thingiverse yet. And they were like, well, we've got a 3D model of him. And I was like, get that Kool-Aid Man up on Thingiverse, because every MakerBot is a portal through which brand enthusiasts and people who care about stuff are going to want to download stuff. And if you don't design it, they will. If you don't come up with, if you have a brand, whether it's Coke or Pepsi or it's a smaller brand, you want to be there so that when your enthusiasts are there and they have a MakerBot, they can make things and then we'll go out into the world and share them with you.
All right, so for those people in the room that this is new to them, let's spend a minute real quick. What is Thingiverse?
Okay.
And what's the relationship between makers, let's say creators or designers, and consumers and printers?
So Thingiverse.com is a website we built because in 2008 when we built it, we believed that there was a future where, just like you can download movies, you can download music, you can download books. We thought you're going to be able to download things. And when there wasn't a website where there was a community that did that, we were like, okay, let's do this. And it's interesting. When we started out, the first year was probably just like 100 things, and most of them were stuff we uploaded ourselves. And now we're getting to the point where there's always that threshold in a community where you can't see everything. We're just hitting that. We're hitting, between 500 and 1,000 new things are shared by the community every day, and that's things you can make on a MakerBot that you couldn't make yesterday. So Thingiverse is a sharing site where people share digital designs for making wonderful things.
Right, and then as a consumer, I can find that design and then print it on my 3D printer.
Yeah, in many ways, for people who aren't engineers or who use CAD, it's a great shortcut to becoming a MakerBot operator and being a creative, because it allows you to go there, explore Thingiverse, find the coolest stuff, download it, and make it on your machine, and then have it as a physical object.
What are some of the examples, let's just go right to the best examples of brands that you've worked with that have just really nailed this?
So we worked with Nokia, and it was fun. We went to Mobile World Congress with them. We collaborated with them and made what we call a customizer, which is a thing that's actually customizable. So at Mobile World Congress, you could come over and we would make you, for their Lumia series phones, we made cases, and you could come over, tell us what your Twitter handle was, make some design changes to it really easily, moving sliders and making some choices. And then you have a very custom phone, because we literally would just, on the spot, we would make you a phone case. So it allowed people to really participate, customize it, and have something that's special to them. And Nokia is really making a go at being relevant and showing up, and that's one of the ways that they're doing it is going to their customers, finding where they are, finding out what they want, and then giving it to them.
Who at the brand is would you see sort of leading or becoming part of the maker side for the brand? Because I mean that sounds like a no-brainer. I mean, but is it the same person that you're working with? Is it a certain type of role, or what can we learn here on how to become part of the maker economy?
So what I would say is, if you want to get into it, probably the best way to get into any community is to just start participating. Whether you want to get into puppetry, you should probably like go to some puppet shows and start making puppets, right? If you want to get into the maker community, it's not too hard to imagine what you have to do. You have to figure out where the people are, and you have to start making stuff. So probably easiest thing to do is go to a hacker space or a maker space. I started NYC Resistor in Brooklyn. You can go there on Thursday nights as the public night, bring a project, meet cool people, make stuff, get into it. If you want to get into 3D printing, you could come see our retail store on Mulberry Street, get inspired, get a MakerBot. And we're really to the point now where it's friendly enough that anybody can get it. And if you have kids and you don't empower them with this technology, you're probably doing them a disservice. So it's time to get on that as well.
Man, all right. Well, with the little bit of time that we have left, why don't you just set the stage real quick? What is this impact on the supply chain, and what's next for the maker economy?
So it's really the way that products usually get made is somebody comes up with an idea, they come out with a design, they make a number of prototypes, and then they start production. With a MakerBot, we take the design process and we shrink it down. The old way was you would make a design, you would send it off, it would get prototyped, and it would come back. Usually it would take a couple weeks or a month to do that process. That meant you could iterate multiple, and when you got it, you were like, oh yeah, no, let's make that part bigger. So you could iterate like multiple times a year. That's not very many. When you have a MakerBot, things take minutes to hours to make, so you can iterate multiple times a day. You can get as much innovation as you might get in a year of iterating, in a day of iterating. And it's affordable, the material's affordable enough that if you don't like it, you can just throw it away and make another before your boss sees it. So it really just supercharges the innovation process through iteration.
Right on. All right. Well, ladies and gentlemen, please help me say thank you to Bree Pettis of MakerBot. Bree,
Thanks
thank
for having
you so much.